An inn that's always been for A-listers. Kings, queens, world leaders have all stayed at the Bear, but it's perhaps best known as a bolt hole for the original power couple. A place to escape the bright lights of Hollywood for none other than Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor. In October 1967, Richard and Elizabeth arrived at Abingdon in their £1 million private plane and headed straight here. Burton wrote in his diary it was to escape the nightmarish prospect of 48 hours solid public exposure. This is the very suite, indeed the very bed that Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor stayed in on one of their many visits to the hotel, trying to escape the fierce glare of the public eye. He last dined here in 1975, just before speaking to students at the University of Oxford. You spoke to Richard Burton.
Yes, I interviewed him.
What did you glean from that? Was he quite a presence, a masterful voice? I heard
yeah, absolutely, but very booming and like it sounds in. Yes, he had that actually voice that actors did in those days.
No one would have believed in the last years of the 19th century that human affairs were being watched from the timeless worlds of space.
The picture of him as a sort of boozy figure persists, I think, even now. It was noticeable that at this time, actually, he wasn't drinking anything. He sipped Vichy water, I remember quite vividly, during the afternoon when he was giving the talk. And then this vast limousine arrived, and out of it stepped Liz Taylor. She was holding a whiskey and soda, which she, for most of the evening, in a crisp white napkin. I've never seen anybody drinking in that fashion before, and perhaps it was because maybe she wanted her hands to be protected from the ice in the drink. That was the only guess I made at the time.
Lying in the shadow of 16th century Blenheim, the Bear's been around so long it's known as the inn that was old when the palace was new. It was part of Elizabeth I and Henry VIII's hunting estate. Over the years, the hotel has accommodated many of Britain's great leaders, including arguably our greatest Prime Minister. And Mr. Churchill seems to have started a trend, because over the years, Harold Wilson, Ted Heath and even David Cameron have stayed here. The Bear has always catered for upmarket tastes. In the 1900s, the well-to-do could hire newfangled motor cars, but at a price. To hire a car for the whole day cost £5, the equivalent of £500 today. The Bear is widely considered to be one of the most haunted hotels in the UK, and there are still parts of the old building where staff won't go alone. The best known ghosts are of a mother and her child who died in the 1700s, and some guests still report seeing a little boy in the corridor wanting to play hide and seek. So whichever part of the Bear's history you look at, there are certainly traces of another world.